Hi folks, Professor Z here, making my first appearance on YouTube. I have some previous videos on Instagram. You might go look at them. They're under the Ken Zerker channel, whatever you want to call it on Instagram, as they're on the Ken Zerker channel here. This is a lesson in how basic music theory works. First, let's explain what basic music theory is. Music theory is the common practice of how people make music. It has nothing to do with the rules, because the rules only exist in three situations. One, if you're in high school and taking a music theory class. Two, if you're in college and taking a music theory class. And thirdly, or letter C, it is if your audience won't accept the rather unusual arrangement of notes and sounds that you make. Then your audience becomes the limiting factor. So let's figure out what happens here. Music theory is based on our major scale. Everything else is a variation on that. The major scale, let's do the simplest one that we all should know. And if you've watched the movie Sound of Music, they use doe, a deer, or a female deer and all that. That's called solfege. That's a way of naming the notes in our scale. But if you remember how the song goes, that can tell you the arrangement of notes. I'm going to write them down in the key of C, okay? And let's see how this works. And go over here a little bit. And you'll notice, and yes, they're all there, how lovely. You will notice that all of the letters are in the alphabet. The alphabet starts here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Why are there two C's? It's just a duplicate on your instrument. I'm a guitar teacher, but this works for any instrument. If you are a guitarist, you'll notice you go up 7 notes. The 8th is a repeat. And that's very cool. So you only need to know 7, plus there's some notes in between these. That's for another day. Okay, when we do work with these things, there's a number of ways to do this. C is one of our keys, and you can move this whole thing to D or F or any of these notes or any of the sharps and flats in between. That's for another day also. I want to try to keep this to 10 minutes. This should do what you need to know to understand why we use music theory. Another way to label these notes is to number them. The classical music folks generally number them with Roman numerals, and it helps distinguish that between like a fingering. Second finger would be a 2, second note in the scale would be this, okay? And I'll put them all in here, and then we'll look at them individually. Okay, these are all the Roman numerals. And you'll notice that these look different than the others because they're lowercase. Most of us haven't seen too many lowercase Roman numerals, except maybe on old grandfather's clocks or something. But 1, 4, and 5 corresponds to something built on the first note of the scale, the 4th note of the scale, and the 5th note of the scale. That's why I stack them up this way, okay? And I'm not the only one who does this. I'm not inventing anything new. I'm just presenting it all in one spot. So if you label these with the Roman numerals, the upper and lower case will become clear in just a minute. And to give me a little more space, I'm going to remove my name here. And there. So what you will find if you play an instrument, especially on a keyboard, it's very obvious that we have scales. And if you take every other note in the scale, we can build chords. And let me show you how that's done. I'll go over this side. C is the first note in the scale. You would skip the second note, meaning every other note. E is your second one. So I'll change colors just because I can, okay? We'll put an E here. We'll skip F, and we'll put a G here. Okay, and can that be seen? Rather poorly. I'll go with a darker color. Okay, I do have my phone here I'm using, so I'll go with green. We'll see if we can see that. How's that? Marginally better, to quote one of the Simpsons. Okay, let's write them all out, every other note in the scale. D is the first note in a chord, skip E. F is second, skip G, A. Okay, I will save some time since we're half done already, and I'll just do them fast. I've done this so many times that it's not exactly new to me, and after you've done it a few times, you'll find it won't be new to you either. And we will not bother with this one because it's a duplicate, okay? These are each of the chords. These are all of what we call the diatonic chords or the natural chords in the key of C. Let's write down the real names of them. You've heard, this is mainly for people who can play some and want to understand what's going on, okay? You've heard the major, minor, diminished, augmented, whatever. There are, in a major key like this, there are three types. There's major chords, there's minor chords, and there is one diminished chord, okay? Let's fill them in. Back to C. Here's the trick with the upper and lower case. The uppercase are major chords. It's like G, A, C, F. If you don't tell us it's minor, or if you don't add a modifier to it, it's a major chord. Okay, so this is C major. I'm going to put a M-A-J on there. 2, the lowercase chords are minor. Okay, so we'll make this D minor. Here's a lowercase, so that's E minor. F is major. I'll get out of the way so you can see this. G is major. A is minor. And B is diminished. And they put a little circle up there to show you that it's diminished, but I will do this. So you can see that. Another thing about these chords is these are all what they call triads. Why are they triads? There are 3 notes in each chord. And that is the minimum you need to actually call it a chord. Guitar players. So what about power chords? There's only 2 in that. That's true if you play a guitar through a lot of gain, which to me distorts the waveforms. I know I build those things, the distortion units, and I love the sounds of them. It makes it so if you play the third of the chord in those distorted chords, it makes it real muddy sounding. So what we do then is we play the lowest note and the top note of a triad, and it gives you a power chord or a 5. Like C5 is just basically C and G, okay? So don't worry about that right now. So we're going to be working with triads. Here we are, 3 notes in each chord. There are 4-note chords. We call them 7th chords, okay? Most pop tunes are written right out of this. You figure out what key you're in, and you can label them either with numbers, or you can label them like this: C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, okay? Don't worry so much about the diminished chord. We rarely, if ever, in pop music, use a diminished triad. If you're going to do diminished, we usually use a 4-note chord or a 7th chord. And we would add the 4th note, B, D, F, and you skip G, and then A. Put that up there. These are all still in the key. This would be a, believe it or not, B minor 7 flat 5. Before you get scared about that, oh, it's too complicated. It's not complicated at all. Don't worry about it. So we will get the 7th chords next time around. If you sit down and write down, you find a pop tune you like, especially the medium-like ones. I had to learn Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac last night. Oddly enough, I've gotten this old, never played it before. I've listened to it quite often, but I wanted to write it down so I didn't mess it up when I go to my band practice. So I wrote it down on a piece of sheet music, and it's in F. Okay, so I would have started here, and I wrote down all the chords, and they followed this pattern. If you follow that pattern, you will know that if you have a chord that's, if you're in the key of C and you hear a chord that starts on F, it's very likely, not always, never say always, because people break the rules all the time. That makes the songs more interesting, if you are careful. But if it's an F, it's likely to be F major, or some form of F major, F major 7, okay? So this is how you can figure out these songs. Can you do this in other keys? Quite easily. They all work. This is the same pattern. So all of our chords are based on the notes of our major scale: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C. That's it. This is basic music theory. We can get into seventh chords in another lesson, and I will spend some time making sure that it makes sense. And we'll take a song and perhaps analyze it and see what the numbers are. Why would we use the numbers? Because when you change keys, if you were to do this in F sharp instead of C, the pattern still holds, and you can just use the numbers. It's really easy to change keys or transpose if you use numbers instead of letters sometimes. If you go to Nashville, they always do that. That's the Nashville system. Do they use Roman numerals? No, they're going to use just regular Arabic numerals, which is the numbers that we use all the time. And they do that because you get into a recording session or you get a different singer, they routinely change keys. So if you give somebody the song with the numbers instead, you can just play in whatever key without even thinking about it. Okay? Professor Z, thank you. This is my first music theory class lesson. If you watch this, this should make sense. I'll do another one very soon that takes seventh chords into account. Okay, we weren't going to get into jazz and that sort of thing, which is based on seventh chords, for a little bit. If you learn this, good. And this is easy. We'll do cycle of fifths and all these other things that people think you have to know, which it's good to know. If you're learning songs, it's good to know some basic music theory because it speeds up the process of learning. It doesn't make you change the way you would write your song, but it might help your song sound better when you're actually going to play it and perform it in front of people. You might, if you're going along in C and you play an E and you play an E major and then a D minor, you're going to find that doesn't sound right. There are ways to use E major. We will get to that in a future lesson. Thank you so much. Talk soon. Professor Z out. See you again